100%. I mean, for me, ever since I started writing music, it's been like therapeutic for me. Like that was basically something that I just had to do. So the most exciting thing for me is like the process of writing a song and feeling like I'm getting this idea out of me and into
Mhm.
some sort of like physical form of some kind or something. So it's like that for me is the most exciting part. And then when I start thinking about the production of it, that's also really exciting because it's like it can go anywhere. So then
Yeah.
when it's kind of like locked in and finished, it's like it's a beautiful thing, but it's also just like so strange to kind of have this idea like solidified.
Today on the show, we are joined by singer-songwriter Jay Feelbender. Around the recording of this conversation, he just released his latest single, Big Game, and that's about to be part of a 6-track EP being released on March 25th titled Enter the Mirror. And he is fantastic. There's a few tracks out with videos right now for that EP, each very unique to their own, and I totally recommend you guys checking that out. And throughout this episode, as we talk about the new EP, the new single he just released, we kind of dive into his creative journey of being an artist over the pandemic, how tours got canceled with his band Goodbye Honolulu, and him really getting to explore his craft as a solo artist while diving into many other introspective subjects. This was a great talk. I hope you guys enjoy it. And here's Jay Feelbender. Nice to meet you, man.
Nice to meet you. How you doing?
Oh, great, man. Grats on the single today.
Thank you. Yeah, it feels good.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. And with the single too, you got the music video rocking with that too. And it's awesome. Was just watching it before you came on too. And I got like some like old school kind of like Beck, like
Oh yeah,
hip hop, like rock vibes. And I
totally.
loved it because it's just like a sound like I haven't heard in a while, I guess. It's like very stimulating to me and something that kind of connects like a bit of nostalgia with the type of music I grew up listening to.
Totally. Yeah, it was definitely some kind of like 90s inspo, Beck, probably some Beastie Boys. So yeah, all that's definitely in there.
Yeah, right on. And this is part of like a bigger EP that's coming out, right?
Yeah, should be out at the end of March. That's kind of the plan right now. And it's the third single, and then it's gonna come out in March. Yeah.
Yeah, wicked. Yeah, this morning too, I also checked out the other singles too, and I just love the videos, man. It's and
Thank you.
it seems like so far each track has a bit of a different vibe to it. Is this like an intentional thing? Is it going to keep going throughout like the EP or?
Yeah, it is intentional actually. Basically, I've been talking with a lot of my friends recently. I feel like growing up in the 90s for me, I was like inspired by so many different types of music, like surrounding me in the pop charts at that point. There wasn't just like one type of music. It was pretty like across the board. So I definitely felt like growing up I had so many different influences. Um, and then making these EPs that I'm working on, I basically wanted to bring that into my kind of inspiration for it and just like have each song kind of have a different um meaning behind it.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, it's just got a raw feeling, but it's also like polished, if that makes sense,
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
it's hard to explain. Like it's like I don't know if it's like stripped down but good,
Mhm.
and it's in a real feeling. And I always got that feeling from like music in the 90s too. It's like you could listen to a song and it would sound the same way live, or like if you listen to like a band like a just off the top of the head, like Nirvana, like it sounds
Mhm.
like you're there, like in the garage with them type of
Yeah, yeah.
deal or whatever. And that's something like I've always appreciated. And I feel like, not to knock on like the new way of doing music and over polishing too, I feel like
Yeah,
there's an art in that as well. But
totally.
I don't know. I just like I feel like you get a bit of more of a connection to it when it just feels a
Mhm.
little real.
I agree, and it's funny you say that because basically Jay Feelbender was my solo project that was kind of aside from the band I was in called Goodbye Honolulu. And it always was kind of the music I was making at my house. And I always wanted to be more like lo-fi. I always wanted to be kind of more just like in the garage kind of feeling. But then recently I wanted to kind of like step it up, but I wanted to keep that energy. So I'm really happy that you say that because I basically went to the studio with that in mind. And I wanted it to sound kind of better on a new level of quality, but still hold that heart in it. So
Oh, that's really dope. Yeah, mission accomplished, man.
yeah,
And
thanks.
yeah, I was reading too, like in your press release, you were saying, or it was saying that you wrote this EP like over the pandemic. And I'm noticing as I'm like talking to like different artists, like and even close friends of mine who are musicians, over this time, it seems like everybody was just kind of writing music because you couldn't go out and tour or whatever, and just kind of having that isolation and
Oh, for
everything.
sure. Yeah, I mean, at the beginning of the pandemic, my band was supposed to go on a whole tour. We were supposed to go to the UK, and obviously all that just got shut down. So it was definitely at the beginning just like, what are we doing? What do I do now? But then, of course,
Yeah.
the thing you turn to is just what you know, what I know, which is writing music, you know? So at the beginning, I definitely had it like the first summer of the lockdown, I basically just kind of like went into isolation at my parents were out of town. And my girlfriend and I have an apartment together, but it was obviously very claustrophobic being there for
Yeah.
so long and not being able to leave. So at a certain point, I went to my parents' house that they weren't at and just kind of like hunkered down for 2 weeks and just recorded a bunch of demos. So a lot of the EP came from that, and Big Game was one of those as well.
Yeah, that's dope. And even going back to like watching the first video from this EP, Cheap Whiskey, it seems like you're kind of poking fun at the pandemic too. And I thought it was like in a very clever way. And people listening to this, you got to see the video for this. I just loved it. Like you were like in the bubble, like walking down the street and everything.
Yeah,
And yeah, it was super cool.
that was actually the director, Warren P. Sonoda,
Mm.
who's a great filmmaker in Canada and globally. But that was his idea to do the bubble. We talked to him, and the whole song is obviously kind of about, isolation, being in the pandemic, being alone, which is kind of ironic because I'm in a city in Toronto usually that has, tons of people in it, millions of people in it, but feeling so alone. So that was kind of the theme behind Cheap Whiskey. And then Warren just heard that and thought of this like plastic bubble, which was so great.
Yeah, yeah. Like it sounds like the maybe the message behind the songs like kind of deep and heavy, but like I love like the contrast with the video, and it was really fun. Like even like you have a moment where like there's like a hole in it and you're like patching it up with like duct
Yeah,
tape.
yeah.
Yeah, but I
Totally.
think that's a feeling like a lot of people could relate to, like especially like speaking for myself too. It's like I'm in Toronto as well too, and I feel like just kind of what happened over the last couple of years with all the isolation too. It's like left myself with like feelings of like just loneliness too, and even
Mhm.
I think being forced to just kind of sit down with your own thoughts and maybe think about things of like life and everything that you haven't dug around to, and it's just new weird internal introspective territory going on.
Totally. I feel like a lot of people were forced to confront things that maybe they've been trying not to think about or could like push away by just being busy. But as soon as that's all kind of taken away from you, it's like you're kind of forced to confront those things, which can be helpful and can be important, but it can also be pretty scary.
Yeah, definitely. Actually, my last guest, Justine Giles, or Justine Giles, she has a single coming out today as well too. We talked about it too, and it seemed like you guys were on like a similar wavelength of like just taking that isolation and turning
Mhm.
it into art. And I think
Mhm.
that's the beautiful thing about being a musician. And we also talked about that in this episode, or that episode, where it's almost like you can take something that's uncomfortable or painful and then flip it upside down and like make something beautiful out of it, like make a
Mhm.
song that people connect to, or even like you can tour it and make money off it too. It's like the biggest like fuck you back to the universe in a way.
Yeah, yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I love that concept of it 100%. It's tough. Like, I don't know how what age the your other guest was, but I've been talking to a lot of my friends kind of in their like mid 20s to like early 30s, and I feel like especially during that age, it's like there's kind of a mindset of like I need to achieve, this is my time to like progress in my chosen field and gain as
Mm.
much experience as possible. So for that, to have that mindset and then also being basically trapped inside for 2 years is like such a strange thing, because it's such a strange thing to kind of have to be like, I thought this would be the time where I'd be like doing the most. And you can do stuff, obviously, but it's not the things that maybe a lot of us were picturing, like touring or like playing shows or any of those sorts of things. But you do, I think, have to look at it in some sort of positive light.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I connect to what you said too, and maybe you just taught me a little bit more about my discomfort over this time too. It's like I feel like I had like momentum with what I do with like the interviews, and like had like a sponsored studio too, and then just everything pulled under the rug, and it's like, oh,
Mhm.
how am I doing this now? And it kind of seems like you had a situation too where you were in a band that was very healthy touring, and then it's just like we're about to go on tour, and it's like, nope, okay.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then just trying to still do what you do, but like figuring out like how in like the new
totally.
way of everything.
It can be, I mean, it's sad. Like I'm in LA right now actually with my
Oh,
girlfriend. We've been here for
nice, nice.
a month, but we're coming back. I'm coming back to Toronto this weekend actually. But I was talking to this promoter who works in the UK, and he was just saying that there was a lot of bands that were kind of buzzing right at the beginning of the pandemic that were seeming like, they were on the upward trend. And he just seen so many bands just like basically end over the last 2 years. And it's just
Yeah,
so
yeah.
sad. It makes sense because it's just like, especially I feel like this has been a time for solo artists to thrive, because it's like, you can act independently, versus so many bands have kind of fell to the wayside because it's so hard to get together and do stuff as a team when you're not supposed to be getting together.
Yeah, for sure. Even like things like rehearsal spaces and all that are like shut down. Yeah,
Mhm.
it feels like things are kind of getting pushed on the uprise right now, and people are getting like I don't know, in a healthy mindset of like getting out there and being an artist too. But I don't know where things been so random lately, especially in Ontario, where like a
Oh
couple
yeah.
months ago we had like another lockdown too. It's just like I don't know if it's just like me thinking too much on the negative. I'm like, this could just all get taken away tomorrow.
Yeah, yeah,
That's where my brain's at right now, because it's like it wouldn't even surprise me anymore.
yeah. It's so easy to get disheartened. My mindset now is just
Yeah.
kind of like, especially just in terms of progressing, is like there's really no time limit on anything. For the
Yeah.
most part. It's like I think there is a mind, like I was saying, a mindset of like, I got to get this done at this point in my life or it won't happen. But it's like, there's so many stories of people who don't even find their passions until way later on in life. So I think it's important to just remember that there's not really a time limit.
Yeah, that's true. It's very freeing to get into that mindset too. And like, yeah, like you mentioned, like even like a guy like an actor like Morgan Freeman. I don't think they found him till he was like in his 50s. And
Yeah,
yeah, you
exactly.
mentioned too, it's like I noticed like, yeah, people like in their later 20s, like in 30s, and like myself, it's just like there's almost like this panic when you're in that mode of I'm growing and I'm figuring out what I'm doing, and then nope is cut off, and like
Yeah,
who knows? But
definitely. I
yeah,
feel
yeah,
like hopefully we're at a time now where we'll be able to start moving through this. And like, we have little pockets over the last 2 years of times where it's seeming like, oh, we can get back together, and then it falls again. And Ontario is especially strict, um, which is good. But coming to LA, it was just been so strange. It's like we got here and it just felt like there wasn't a
yeah,
pandemic going on, which was kind of freaky at first, but also at some points it was felt kind of freeing too.
yeah, yeah. That's understandable. And
Mhm.
yeah, even with the new single too, it's cool to kind of like read up on it, and that hearing that your mom directed the video as well, and
Mhm.
she's a film professor, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, she's first and foremost a filmmaker, and I've been acting in her film since I was like, well, the first short film I was in, I think I was maybe like 7, maybe even younger than that.
Oh, no way, that's
So,
cool.
so we've been working together for a long time.
Yeah,
So,
right
I mean,
on.
I suppose, and in some ways, I was her biggest art project, maybe. So,
Yeah.
birthing, and my sister.
Yeah. You got to use
But
your resources that are
yeah,
around
exactly.
you. Yeah.
We were the easiest um actors to nab, being in the house all the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we've been working together for a long time. She is a professor at York University, as well. But yeah, so I mean, I've always been like showing her my music videos and showing her my music. Obviously, my dad's also a musician, so both my parents are in the arts world and very supportive. So I've always been kind of like, you know, every step of the way showing them what I've been doing. And then at
Right
a certain
on.
point, when I came with this EP and I was showing my family, my mom was like, I got to do a video for this, like at some point.
Yeah, that's
So
so sick. Yeah.
yeah, this one I think stuck out to her because same things you were saying. She loves Beck, she loves Beastie Boys. So when she heard that one, she was like, "Oh, I really want to do a video for this." And yeah, I was more than happy to do it. So it was super fun.
Yeah, and the visuals like match the music perfectly too. And it's a quick banger too. It just kind of like punches you like in a couple minutes, and then it's like, oh damn, like I was
Totally.
grooving. I was like hoping it would go on a little more, but that's pretty cool about it too. It's kind of got like I guess that punk rock spirit. It's like you go in, you kick ass, and then out next tune type of thing.
Totally. Yeah, I think it's like under 2 minutes, which probably my shortest song
Yeah.
on the EP. But yeah, that's totally the mindset where it's just like come in, go hard, kick ass, get out.
Yeah.
Hopefully that inclines people to just be like, oh, I need to hear that again. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. And with the solo stuff, have you played any of it live, or have you just always been with the bands before?
Well, it's kind of been. I had like another solo project called Headspace, like when I basically first like out of high school started making my solo music. Um, at that point, the Headspace meditation app hadn't taken off yet. And
Yeah.
once that happened, I was like, oh man, I don't know. Like if you Google Headspace, it's like that's the first thing that comes up, and
Yeah,
it's also
guided meditation.
yeah, which is cool, but like, it pushes my things a little farther down in the search engine. And then
Yeah.
also there was like a German metal band or something, which also was like seemingly did pretty well. So there's a bit of competition on the name front. But I was fine with that because again, at that point, it was just so like it was so just for me to make music and have an outlet. But then I think about 3 years ago, I decided to just do the name change to Jay Feelbender, and I did do like two more kind of albums in that kind of lo-fi bedroom vibe, but I basically took that down because I wanted to start fresh with this new stuff. So
Right on. That's got to be a freeing feeling too. It's just kind
mhm.
of I don't know, just have that fresh start mindset and almost a feeling it's like, hey, I could do whatever I want and I don't
Yeah,
have to be trapped to almost the old concept of what you were doing before. And that's awesome.
totally. I know it's kind of freeing to be able to do that, especially when it's all kind of at this point pretty just digital. So it's like
Mhm.
you have the power to really do that. People don't have the physical copies, so it's like, man, if you want to take something down, it's not that I'm not proud of that stuff though. Like, I still have it on Bandcamp and stuff like that. It's just like on the streaming platforms. Also, to answer your question, back then I used to play shows as like Headspace and stuff, but I actually haven't played shows as Jay Feelbender. I think I may have played one show like right before the pandemic, but
All right on. And like the sounds like beyond yourself, like so do you plan on like maybe playing or even touring like this type of music and would you have to like get a band together and everything, or do you have like people in mind already, or
yeah, I got people in mind. I mean, the person I produced it with, his name is Braden Sauter. He runs a studio called Marquee Sound. He's my brother-in-law. So he played all the drum parts. So he played a bunch of stuff with me on it, but he played all the drum parts. And he's also in my girlfriend's band. Her name's Luna Lee, and he plays in her band as well. He's a phenomenal drummer and producer. So I would probably, if possible, have him in the band, but he has a child with my sister.
everybody's
Having children,
connected.
yeah, exactly. Having children doesn't make it the easiest to like, be touring and stuff like that. But they've been pulling it off. So I don't know. He's definitely in there. My sister plays bass too. So I got some people in mind for sure. And I definitely want to play it live. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, right on, right on. And yeah, it's like it's super cool to just like I'm very intrigued to hear the rest of this EP too, because like I mentioned before, each song so far has seemed a little different. And how
Mhm.
how many tracks are you gonna have on this thing?
So actually when I went in and recorded with Braden, recorded a bunch of songs. So I'm kind of still like solidifying the last details of it, but it looks like
Mhm.
it's going to be 6 songs.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And kind of finishing this, this is kind of like the new step in your music career or whatever, just like the way you want to express yourself. How do you feel after like completing the EP?
It was good. I mean, it was funny because we actually went into the studio with the mindset of re-recording some old stuff. And then once I was there, I was like, I have a bunch of new music. Like, I'd love to just record this. And Braden was like, oh yeah, let's go for it. So our kind of mindset was just, we didn't really have anything planned. It really was just like, let's just record for fun and see what happens. And then like after a couple songs, we were like, okay, this is like going well. Let's just keep going, make an EP. make as much as we can. So it felt really good to do that, but we weren't really going in with the mindset of like, we're going to make this whole project. It kind of just like started to happen. But I love being in the studio. Like that's kind of my favorite. Well, I mean, I love performing live too, but I love being in the
Yeah.
studio. So for me, it's almost sad when it ends. Like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
almost less
Playtime
like,
over type of
yeah, yeah.
feeling.
It's
Yeah.
almost,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. It's almost like I don't know, sad when you finish it and you're just like, oh, now we're like done in the studio, and it's just kind of the things that we've been working towards is here, and then releasing it is a whole other kind of fun game. But just having it done is like, wow, there's a bit of pride, but I'm also like, oh man.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It seems like you really love like the process too, and
Mhm.
like I don't know. I find like when I talk to different artists on this thing, like it's almost like the making of whether it's like a song or a comedy bit or a film or whatever. It kind of like can fall into like this flow state, and that almost to go full circle what you were talking about with the meditation, that's like almost like a creative mind form of meditation of just
Mhm.
getting lost in the zone.
100%. I mean, for me, ever since I started writing music, it's been like therapeutic for me. Like that was basically something that I just had to do. So the most exciting thing for me is like the process of writing a song and feeling like I'm getting this idea out of me and into
Mhm.
some sort of like physical form of some kind or something. So it's like that for me is the most exciting part. And then when I start thinking about the production of it, that's also really exciting because it's like it can go anywhere. So then
Yeah,
when it's kind of like locked in and finished, it's like it's a beautiful thing, but it's also just like so strange to kind of have this idea like solidified.
yeah. I also love when you can fall into that zone too and like not think about like the problems of the world or whatever, and even like as you're doing it, it's like almost time doesn't exist in a way. Like you can go to the studio in the morning and next thing you know it's like the next day like 4 in the morning, it's like what happened, like just like
Yeah,
this
100%.
creative blackout, and it's like a healthy way of doing it. And like I know some
Yeah.
people have their vices, like whether it's like drugs or alcohol, but like
Mhm.
I don't know, I feel, do you feel like you get like a high from like producing music and stuff like that, or playing
Oh yeah,
live and everything?
for sure. I mean, playing live has its own like set of adrenaline that just
Yeah.
like kicks in when you're, performing in front of people. But I definitely feel like creating that definitely gives me a certain type of high for sure. Um and it's like something that I just like could not live without for sure.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
it's funny because
for
I love
sure.
that way of recording, like you're saying, like just like staying up all night in the studio and just like getting shit done.
Yeah.
When I was for this recording process, I went in with Braden and I like stayed over at his place for like a week straight. So we literally just were like waking up, going to the studio, recording until like the night, and then just like going until we couldn't go anymore, going to sleep, getting up, going back and recording again. So that was like I love that process.
Yeah, that's so dope too. And like you mentioned, like playing live too, it's like its own kind of high. And I feel like I got a taste of that. Like I dabbled in like some stand-up comedy like a few years ago.
Mhm.
And I remember like one day it went really, really well. And I wish I could like almost bottle that feeling and like inject it into somebody who's like never done it before too, because
Mhm.
like even like I've had times where like I bombed like super hard, but I kept going back because like I remembered how like the good it felt. and
Totally.
and yeah, like I've never played live music before, like, but like I can imagine it's like almost a similar rush where you're just get a connection with the people, and like
Mhm.
especially like I feel like sometimes there's this unspoken energy in the air of everybody just kind of like vibing to it, and I don't know,
Totally.
that's just such a beautiful thing.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, that it's like the two sides of the coin. I feel like one side of creating art and music specifically is very like personal, and it's something
Mhm.
that like I have to do and a lot of artists I know have to do because it's like for them. And then when you play live, like that's where it kind of flips, and it's like that's when your music hopefully can connect with other people. And that's like the whole other kind of aspect that's super beautiful is just like when someone will come up to you after a show and be like, oh, that song, I heard that song and it really meant a lot to me, or whatever it is, or even just seeing you live was so fun. And those sorts of things can just like, oh yeah, I forgot that I wrote this for myself basically, but it can connect to other people and like, sometimes help other people or just make them feel something, which is honestly amazing.
Yeah, for sure. And like you mentioned, like it's like such an isolating thing to produce, but then like getting it out there, and like you really don't know until like you put it out there to the people too. And I've talked to like bands and comedians and stuff like that where they said like maybe they did like a filler joke and that's the one that like landed, and like it's like, oh my god, like I didn't know like people would connect to that. And even like bands with like certain songs that they just threw in the playlist where they're like, oh, this one's our big hit, and then that gets crickets, and then like
Yeah.
another like just random one like pops off, like everybody coming up to them, that's our favorite type of thing.
Yeah.
It's such like an interesting, I don't know, just like social like experiment in a way as
Mhm.
well too when you think about it.
That's the funny thing, is you really never do know what's going to connect with people and what's not.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the other thing about playing live and comedy too, or whatever it is. It's like the not the fear, but like the knowledge that it could all be a disaster
Mm-hmm.
is kind of what makes it amazing too.
Yeah.
Like knowing that you could mess up horribly is
Yeah,
kind of like a beautiful thing. Because there's not really those sorts of stakes when you're just like sitting in your bedroom,
for
which
sure.
which is awesome because you have time to experiment, but like it's just a whole other thing.
Yeah. And when you're playing something new, does it feel do you get like a vulnerable feeling like when you're about to do it for like the first time, or like is it
Totally, yeah.
nerves or
100%, yeah. I mean, I usually find that before I perform, I get I get like nervous. Um, my 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 friend told me at one point, like when I first started performing, that like fear is also just excitement. So I always try to think like I'm nervous, but I can just channel that into like being so excited for this. So I try to
mm,
do that. It's not as easy as just saying it, but like that's something I try to think about before I perform. And then also I usually find as soon as I step out on stage, it kind of just vanishes. Usually.
oh yeah,
I'm just
yeah.
like, oh yeah, as soon as I get out there, it's like I usually start talking a lot. I don't like, I just end up talking a lot because I'm excited. And then that makes it easier for me because I'm immediately connecting with the audience and like I can just talk back and forth with them. And for me, that just like makes it so much more personal. And then I'm like, let's go, let's play some music. So
Yeah, that's awesome. And that's such a true thing too, like the pre-stage nerves too. And
mhm.
like I got some friends who like get it like really, really bad. And then it's like whether they hit like the first like chord or like they tell the first joke, it's just all of a sudden it's interesting. It's like this weight just falls off their shoulder. It's like, okay, no, I'm fine. Like
Yeah,
I'm like not scared. I don't feel like I'm gonna throw up anymore. And it's just
totally.
yeah, yeah.
Once you're doing it, you're doing it. And to a certain extent, I also feel like, I mean, I've been playing live for like 10 years now or something, probably more than
Mhm.
that. And so to a certain extent, it's like muscle memory at this point. Um, I'll walk on stage and be like, I can't remember any of the songs. And then like
Yeah.
within the first second, I'm just already playing it. I'm like, oh yeah, no, I know everything.
Yeah, yeah,
But
that's
there's always
awesome.
that like mind wipe at first where you're like, I forget, I can't do this. And then you're like,
Yeah.
oh.
Yeah. And it seems like performing's like just been like a big part of your life too. Like you mentioned, acting in your mom's films when you were like 7 and stuff. And do you still act at all? Or?
I really enjoy acting. It's always been something I really enjoy doing and I'm passionate about. Speaking of like stage anxiety, I always just like never I was really bad with auditions. Like I just get really nervous. And I think it's just like, and it actually, you know what? Performing live musically too, being in like a room with like four people with the idea of like them basically like judging you, like just
Yeah.
that, like for that sole purpose of being like, so show us what you have. And it's like four people in a room. Like that's just like terrifying. Like no one should have to do that.
Yeah, yeah. And it's just
So
like you could see each one of their emotions and like
yeah,
just feel their eyes on you. And yeah,
yeah.
I've never been to like an acting audition, but I can imagine like how terrifying it could be, especially if you really want the role. And I
Mhm.
know people like who are older who like do acting for a living, and it's like almost not even wanting the role. It's like, yo, I need this to like pay
Yeah,
my
yeah.
rent next month too. And then it's
100%.
a whole other like beast. Like it's
Yeah.
such a crazy world.
And speaking of that nervousness where your mind kind of goes blank, like when I play live musically, I feel like these are my songs. Like there's no one's can tell me that this is the right way to play them or whatever. It's like
Mm.
this is my thing. When you're going in for an audition, it's like there are lines that you're supposed to know.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's not really up to me to be like improving on the lines or whatever, unless that's called for. So it just adds a whole extra level of pressure. And then when I had those like mind kind of blank things, there wasn't just like I can just do what I want. It's like, no, I have to follow the script. So anyway, I really enjoy acting. If I could do it with my friends, if there's like a role that comes up or whatever, like I'm more than happy to do that. But the whole auditioning process kind of like just was too much stress for me.
Oh yeah, I can imagine too. And it's yeah, it seems like music's a little like more laid back, you know,
Yeah.
and cool and yeah, yeah. No, no, that's really awesome to hear and just kind of learn a lot about you too. It's like
Mhm.
yeah, I can even tell like in your videos like you're very animated and stuff. So it's amazing how you can combine like so many like different things in your life and turn it into like one special thing as
Yeah.
well. And even like I think it's so dope with the latest single big games that even have your mom involved with the video
Mhm.
too. And it just seems like a perfect piece of the puzzle of like
Mhm.
probably different things in your life all coming together right now, you know.
Well, that's the thing is like I do love film and I've grown up loving film. And for me, it's something like I would be interested in writing or directing for sure. And like a lot of my friends are in the film world too. So it's definitely something I'm interested in. And I've always been super interested in the fusion of music and film. They just go hand in hand, you know?
Yeah,
So that's why I'm also super interested in like, I'm really interested in getting my music placed in films. And like, because so many times I've found great bands or like, when have you seen those things where there's like a horror movie and they'll just take the music out to like show you what it's like and the like fear factor of it is just immediately gone.
yeah, yeah. It's
So it's like
or even they did that with like sitcoms and took out like the laugh track, and it's
right.
just like these aren't even jokes. They're just
Yeah.
saying like,
Yeah.
and it's like these looks like a conversation between like insane people and
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah,
And so it's like
sound is like lots of people say it's like the most important part of like films and everything
mhm.
too, because you can tell a story on the radio too and everything. But I don't know, it's like visually like it just seems off if it's not on
Mhm.
point, you know. And it's I feel like it's something like a lot of us when we're watching movies too, you don't really think about when it's really well done, you know. It just because it seems so
Totally.
naturally. But I don't know, even like I do videography and I've done like some shitty projects too where I like when I first started that I can't even look at right now. But
Right.
a lot of the issue was like because the sound's off in a certain
Yeah.
way or like placing things in weird spots and stuff
Mhm.
like that. But
Yeah, it's wild how much that can affect the film or whatever piece it is. And so yeah, I love the pairing of that and like noticing that in film. So it's like for me, that's something I'm super interested in as well.
yeah, dope. With the EP as well, are you gonna make a video for every song?
I'm thinking about it. Yeah, I feel like I mean, if I did that, some of the videos would come out after the EP, but I mean, I think that's cool. Um, so yeah, I mean, I've already done 3 videos. So yeah, I'm thinking about doing videos for all of them. Yeah, why not?
Yeah, and they're great too. I just want more selfishly. So
Yeah, okay, great.
yeah.
I'll take that
Yeah.
to heart and I'll do it for you.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah. No, that's so dope. And it's great to meet you today too. And yeah, before I know you've been doing like some other media today too, so I'm not going to take up too much of your time. But
Oh no, great talking. Yeah.
yeah, before we take off, is can you tell the people like where they can find you? I know like that's
Mhm.
always an exhausting question because there's so many social media platforms
Yeah,
right
yeah.
now and everything. But
Well, luckily, like we were saying before, I mean, with the headspace thing, it was so much harder to find. But Jay Feelbender, actually, no one has that.
yeah, that's
So
fire.
yeah.
That's a lesson for aspiring artists to
Mhm.
Google like your idea and see what's out there too,
Yeah.
because the way the world is right now too, like search optimization is so important
Mhm.
even for people to find you.
Totally. I mean, there was that wave of artists that like would like change their name slightly, like it was a word like churches or like waves or those where they would
Yeah,
add
they'll
like
take out like a vowel or
yeah,
something. Yeah.
exactly. So that kind of stuff, and I'm convinced that was purely for that.
Yeah.
So that because if someone looked up churches, they're not going to find that band. So
Yeah.
they had to
Yeah.
change it up a little bit. So yeah, Jay Feelbender for me was good for in that sense for sure. So yeah, you can basically find all my stuff at Jay Feelbender. Yeah, I have a website, jfeelbender.com. It's on Spotify, Instagram, Twitter, all the social things.
Yeah, right on, right on. And yeah, today we're gonna, even though this episode's not coming out today, it's coming out next week. We'll be sharing the song that came out today, Big Game and everything too. And yeah, we'll continue to follow the journey. You know, it's cool, it's exciting. It seems like you got like you mentioned, like kind of like a breath of fresh air with this new project too, and
Yeah.
it's an infectious spirit, and I recommend everybody checking out your stuff. So yeah, thanks for talking to me today, man.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, cheers. We'll keep in touch, and have a good one, man.
Sure. Have a good day.
Hope you guys enjoyed that talk with Jay Feelbender. Like we mentioned, the EP, it comes out on March 25th, and definitely check it out, and check out all the videos that's been released so far around that. We got more episodes coming for you around the corner, maybe even 2 being dropped this week, and we thank you for taking the time to listen to these. And like always, before we leave, we got to give the biggest thanks to all of you absolute legends on the Patreon. And first up, the co-producer Jeremy Hopkin of Hopkin Design, the Queen Ola Mazuka of Sonic Fold, Ryan Watkins of Ryan Radio, Amanda McKnight of Top 10 Nerd, Pat Maloney, Ryan Campbell, Daniel Son, Devin Staple, Devin McBride, I'm getting tongue twisted, Devin McBride, Ramshi, it's hammer time, baby, Mike Julio, Jenny Potter, Jared Pepper Bronstein, aka Mr. Spicy, and last but not least, Francis Coffer, aka my mom. Thanks once again. If you want to get these episodes extra early, raw and uncut, or want to show a little bit of support and get your name shouted out at the end of every one of these episodes, you can go to patreon.com/the creative imbalance. And if you don't have the means to do that and you just enjoy these episodes, give it a like, give it a comment, give it a share to somebody you think would enjoy it. And yeah, spread some love as we're getting some momentum back into the podcast, and every little bit helps. So thank you so much, and we'll talk to you next time. Cheers.